We've got right next to me Dr. Tanja Prinzessin-zu-Waldeck. She is Chief Operating Officer at Burda Forward, a startup unit of the German publishing house Burda. And then we've got Francesco Moretti. You're missing in my list here. Sorry about that. Francesco, he's Deputy CEO of Fincons Group, our host today, and they've not just only celebrated 10 years of their collaboration with Sky in Germany. There's another German angle. You've just opened an office in Munich, so you're obviously looking at expanding your business in Germany, and we'll hear more about that later on. Then we've got Andrea Conte, Head of Product Development and Data at Publitalia, a Mediaset subsidiary. Mediaset is, of course, the big Italian broadcaster, and we'll hear lots about the advertising side of the business. And last not least, we've got Riccardo Botta, Senior Director Product, Broadcast and Creative Hub at Sky Italia. Both are broadcaster and a platform operator. And we've got connected to us live, and this is a technology panel, so I'm sure that this technology will work. You can see him up here. Peter Frigelius, Head of TV and Entertainment from Swisscom TV. Swisscom, of course, the big telco from Switzerland, and he's heading the TV and Entertainment unit of Swisscom TV, their HbbTV product. And as we all know, Swisscom is really much ahead of other players in this market, and everybody's looking at Swisscom because they're doing really interesting things, and it's all also supported by Fincons. Now I'm going to start with Riccardo, because I've just mentioned you've got this track record of 10 years of history collaborating with Sky in Germany, now also collaborating with Sky in Italy and the UK, obviously in other markets, because that different Sky operations have grown together more and more, and they still kept collaborating with Fincons, and that's obviously a good sign. So can you tell us something about your collaboration with Fincons?
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. So we started, just to give you a bit of a background, Sky is a joint company since 2016. Before, in 2009, when we bought Premiere as the news corporation, there was a big group of Italian people coming over to Germany to help our German colleagues. So back at the days in 2009, we were starting working with Fincons on the anytime, anywhere concept of trying putting content also on digital, on the web. And so when German, that was led by an Italian colleague, the IT was led by an Italian colleague, decided to launch their OTT platform, and Fincons was already working with us, so we suggested the partnership, and they started working together here with Germany, leading all their efforts to Sky Go, to the launch of OTT, to Snap, and then to Sky Ticket until as of today. So it started because we were working already with them. We were happy about the convergence that we were doing in Italy, and we were starting helping our German colleagues. Now it's even stronger because now, since 2016, we are even more of a European group. Now we are all together under Comcast.
So we were looking at the OTT products, a classic broadcaster, pay TV broadcaster in this case, going into the OTT world. What were your main challenges, and what is different now compared with like how the market was 10 years ago?
Feeling for me is that for OTT, 10 years ago was really the infancy of OTT. So it was a lot of still things to address. When we launched, for example, in Germany, we had to heavily customize some components, some CMSs. That's where also the help of Fincons was very good. I mean, it was more of things to invent back in 2009, 2010, especially with those frameworks of time. I'm not saying that now doing OTT is like spinning up something on the cloud and it's easy, but there are even the product roadmap is much easier to find frameworks or solutions. Now, for example, in Italy we are working also with UK and the group to help supporting the launch of NBCU OTT over in US in April. So now it's more stabilized. Even the ecosystem, the vendors, the components of the application map are much more clear than back in the days.
Now we stay with OTT and we stay with the broadcast world with Peter, who's still connected, I hope, talking from a Swisscom side as a telco. what's your OTT strategy as a telco, and how do you see yourself positioned in a market that's more and more fragmented with all of these different players? We've got Amazon, we've got Netflix, we've got obviously Sky and all the other players also active in Switzerland. What do you see your role?
So our clear strategy from Swisscom is that we will act as an aggregator. We believe that we have a big role to play there, since we all know that the sports content has become very fragmented, and with all the players entering into the fiction content as well, with direct B2C offerings, OTT offerings, we feel that we need to have all these offerings on our platform, where we reach more than 35% of the Swiss households. And we also have a role there to play, where we will actually make sure that the customer doesn't have to dive into different apps to see where he can find the content, but we will again bring up the content in the user interface as the main part, and then the customer dives into whatever app is lying behind that content. So I think we embrace OTT players, and we want to keep our position, helping the end users find the content as quick as possible.
Right, so you basically make it easier for the user to find and access, and obviously also pay for. We're talking about billing the content he or she was looking for. And I remember you once said you will be like the Google of entertainment. Is that how it could be expressed?
Yeah, I think that's a good word, actually. Yeah, and that's what we want to do. And I think it's important for us that we really make sure that our customers do not have to change the source on their TV set. They have source number one, and that should be Swisscom TV. And there they find all the content and have a convenient user interface, which presents it in a nice way for them.
So to summarize that, we've got this fragmented world where you basically need different apps for all the different content providers, whereas Swisscom says we are more like an aggregator and provide a common platform where the user can then find the content he or she is looking for through deep integrated apps.
Yes, absolutely. That's correct. That's what we are doing, and that's what we are working with and building in our partnerships with the different app providers.
Now, talking about the the advertising side of the business, because obviously we were already addressing the monetization. It's great to have great content, it's great to have great technology, but someone needs to pay for it, obviously, and that's where HbbTV, a Mediaset subsidiary, comes into the picture. I know you've already had a few test runs with new services and business cases where Mediaset and HbbTV have set up. HbbTV based, HbbTV, the open standard for interactive television services, and Fincons Group has supported you. So looking back at that, can you perhaps explain a bit about this new world that's opening up for content monetization?
Yeah, sure. Hello? Yeah, sure. So almost 3 years ago, I think, we launched the first HbbTV app in close partnership with Fincons. So that was really the early days of our interactive TV experience, and it was a basic guide to shuffle on TV shows and have basic description in terms of editorial use case, but it had also user viewership data tracking in it. So it was really simple product that put together an editorial use case and an advertising use case. And we kept that approach, actually no stopping the release over these last 3 years, keeping these two souls of the app. And I think a great milestone for our app was the major rebranding we did last year on the World Cup. we had actually in that moment a really complete app with a really nice user interface and the ability for the user to surf on the video on demand catalog for Mediaset. So normal functionality, but also advanced functionality such start over, so the user could restart a TV show or a particular football match if they came in late, or real-time clipping, so 5 minutes after the goal was scored, the user could see the real-time clip in HbbTV. So Fincons Help actually came into play because HbbTV is an horizontal technology. We have not a box. We are leveraging the hardware we have on the TV set. So having a restart functionality done just with the hardware you have on the TV set, it's very challenging. And Samsung hardware is different from LG hardware. So it's really key to have such partner on the tech side.
Interesting to see that you've now gained all this experience with one of the biggest, hottest topics of our industry, that's targeted advertising and addressable TV. And I think there'll be lots more to come. Also from you, Tanya, as a publishing company or a company coming from a publishing background, normally you would think you'd be more interested in, e-papers and all of these things, but you've told me that video is playing a very important role also for you as a publishing house, and you see a great future ahead of you in this video area that used to belong classically to the broadcasters.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, if anybody of us looks at his kids or her kids, you can see that basically everybody loves to consume content not via text only, but via video or voice. And I think especially the younger we look at our target groups, the more video it has to be. So already 2 or 3 years ago, we decided on basically doing everything we can in news and services in the video as well, and to support our teams with all kinds of technology to quicker and better produce video material for everything, basically. And it just took us, not even 1.5, 2 years to become the biggest video publisher in Germany, actually, almost bigger than a lot of the TV stations online. And that shows that people really want to consume information in a really convenient way.
Yes, I think it's interesting to see how you can expand your business beyond the traditional publishing era towards video and generate new revenues, obviously. And that's where a company like Fincons Group jumps in. Obviously, Francesco, you're supporting these customers from your side into reaching out into these new areas. Obviously, you've got a big global look at things because I said you've just opened the office in Munich, but it's obviously not your only European office, Italy, Switzerland, London, and so on. And from a global perspective, because you're following these developments on international level, what do you see as the main challenges and the main changes, developments in content distribution these days? Not just looking at Europe, but also America, where we've got obviously different markets, different standards. Like here we've been talking about HbbTV. In America it's ATSC. And well, the merging of the linear and online worlds, what are the trends you're really seeing there?
Yeah, hello everybody, first of all, and thank you for staying late night. So, we are a family company, active since 36 years in the market, and we had the lucky to be present in the media industry since the early beginning. So, we have been passing through a lot of change and excitement into the media industry since, the classic workflows and broadcast part, naming like traffic system, all the BMS area, the rights management, the scheduling of the production, the scheduling of things to be put on airs. And then we went into the digital part, as Riccardo mentioned earlier, thanks to the collaboration with Sky, where we entered through all the web development, the app and mobile development into the whole end-to-end OTT architecture implementation, and now which is turning into the combination of the two worlds, which has been always separate so far, while now are really merging. And Mediaset is a perfect example of one of, I would say, the first movers in the European market to combine the two strands. So bringing the online experience into the mainstream, so combining the broadcast and the broadband, which is opening a new set of very interesting business models, both on content promotion and advertising sales. So the hybrid television, the convergence, and the trend that we are experimenting globally is really creating an ecosystem, so not tackling opportunities alone, but really joining and aggregate with other. And I'm glad also that Peter mentioned that term earlier. Aggregation is really a trend we are observing in the industries nowadays. You can have different type of aggregation. Of course, M&A is the simple one, you know, when you would like to have a higher critical mass, and we have been living from outside, but closely, the acquisition that first Sky UK made with Sky Italy and Sky Germany, and now that Comcast made of the Sky Group, which is of course opening a total new set of synergies between processes and content and going to the market. We have a lot of more cases, Disney versus Fox, Viasat versus CBS, Mediaset acquiring 9.something% of ProSieben, so Italian are coming, so watch out.
Another German-Italian combination there.
Yeah. No, this is really to say that now being bigger is a way to survive and to better monetize assets. Of course, there are other types of aggregation, for example, consortium, and we are experimenting aggregation on the production side, where RAI is experimenting with France Télévisions and ZDF, a new way to produce content together and then to use and distribute it into different countries. We have advertising sales aggregation, where we have TF1, again ProSieben and Mediaset joining forces to sell advertising together. And we have a distribution aggregation, so we are viewing a lot of country by countries organization and initiative targeted to this. We have Salto in France, we have here in Germany Join, and we have been viewing earlier this afternoon a direct testimonial of Join here. We have Love TV in Spain, and we have Consorzio TV in Italy. So really, the goal now in the market is creating a global ecosystem to better monetize and better go to the market. And I mean, the other major trend we are observing is really putting together broadcast and broadband. So Europe has a more mature concept here, has already a set of stories and use cases live, launched in the market, while US is like more in the betting stage, where they are, again, teaming up to evaluate, to do MVPs and prototypes. And we have, again, the lucky to bring there in US, which is one of the most competitive market, a testimonial from Europe, which for one time is really ahead from this big market.
Now, we've just mentioned a lot of names in this industry, the players, the content aggregators, and there's one thing, they're all competitors that they all have in common. They need a compelling user interface. It needs to be easy and simple for the user to understand how to find the desired content. Now, coming to Sky Italia, Riccardo, for a compelling user interface, that's what the user sees, but there is more to that. There needs to be something in the background, as I was saying earlier on, the machine room, the back end, and that's something where you've got lots of experience, as you said, a 10-year record. What are the main changes and challenges in this part of the chain? That's something that happens before the content reaches the user.
I'm telling you what we are facing, because we are also, even compared to Swisscom, and I completely agree on what Peter was saying about simplifying, and what you said, simplifying the life of consumer is what now is needed. We are both a distributor and aggregator, so we have a UI. We are a broadcaster, but also we also are a content producer. So what we are doing, what we are trying to do now, when you go back end, it depends how back you go. So we try to integrate as more upstream as possible. So behind the UI you have the CMS, so you try to, but then you will start telling, okay, to drive a CMS I need a great set of metadata and a great set of images, and then you go back and so where do I get those metadata and those images? So I go back to my content supply chain that probably starts with acquisition of rights, acquisition of the images that are related to the rights, scheduling of channels, because we have also own channels and not only third parties, and then you have all the process to receive that content, prepare that content, and deliver it to the different platforms. And you want to avoid doing things twice, 3 times, 4 times, because 10 years ago, before launching everything like this, there was just traditional linear playout. So I was preparing a content, dubbing, subtitling, and sending to a playout server. Then I had to prepare VOD, but then VOD had to be for Sky Go, and then you have to have different transcoding. So you need to agree to make in such a way that you keep it simple in the backend machine, in such a way that the only diversification is when you go to the multi-platform. So you keep the same format, the same metadata up until the very, very, very last moment. Otherwise, you start duplicating too many things and you end up in, expanding dramatically even your cost, but also the possibility of errors and the workflows. That's what we are doing. We're integrating back to the studios level.
Definitely very interesting to hear about that experience, and you've mentioned the word of metadata. We're going to talk about that later on. That is also a very important aspect of the industry. Now, coming to Swisscom, Ricardo has mentioned you, Peter, and your approach. But to achieve all of that, what we've just been talking about, you've decided to commission an external company, in this case Fincons Group, to support you. Could you just a bit explain to us how this support is actually working, how they're supporting you in reaching that state as an aggregator or as the Google of the entertainment world that you want to reach?
Well, we used to have with Fincons TV in the early days an end-to-end solution from one of the major suppliers then, but since about 6 years we have decided for ourselves that we want to take a much bigger role within the whole development of the solution. So within Swisscom we started to build up a real DevOps environment, and building up the needed resources so that we could do a major part of our solution is today in-house development based on open source solutions that are available out there in the market. So in that model, of course we don't have infinite amount of resources, and sometimes we want to bring out more innovations in the market than we can cope with the in-house resources that we are having. And then it's very good to cooperate with a company like Fincons, who are in the close area to us in Switzerland, where we can lay out part of the development by Fincons, or even complete development of a smartphone app by Fincons. And they also understand how we work, and that it will be more sometimes, less sometimes, and they are adapting to this. And this makes the cooperation work really well at the moment for both of us, I think. And of course, it was mentioned before, looking user interface is one thing, and what's all behind that with all the recommendations that we are doing, if it's editorial or coming from the AI machines, or handling all the metadata to get that flow to work really smoothly. There's a lot of work to be done there to make this seamless experience for the end user.
Now, Andrea Publitalia, you've also been working together with Fincons, as we've just mentioned earlier on, for new services and business cases. And can you tell us something about the user engagement, the personalization and monetization that has come out of that? Because you don't just do that for the joy of doing it, you want to get something out of that, especially, let's say, brand building and all of these things. You mentioned the World Cup, for example.
Yeah, and I think user experience, again, it's my answer to that. So user engagement, of course, great content, it's a must. But For our interactive TV experience, we think the user expect crazy fast apps that works across devices and have nice functionalities. So to polish this app on such a diverse tech ecosystem, it's very difficult. And also launching little features that could be nice for users, such as, for example, voting on HbbTV on popular shows. This is really key, I think, for to keep user engaged, basically. Best user experience and little nice functionality that are a little bit out of what they expect as standard. And yeah, in terms of monetization, all the app that I was describing before is having advertising format, of course. So it's completely AVOD. We have display advertising and video advertising, and technology again is a challenge. All display advertising are leveraging HTML5 inside HbbTV. All video advertising, it's using adaptive streaming technology, same as content, to have great quality, such as MPEG-Dash. So again, diverse ways for device to play that. And on user data collection, again, it's challenging because the ability to collect good data and have cookie persistency on the TV set, again, it's a challenge. So for us on the monetization side, to do precise targeting and also not to lose the user, we need solid technology, solid cookies, basically.
Now, Tanya, you've said early on the important role that video plays for you. But in order for a video to play, to use this game, you need a video player, you need a software. And you've decided to opt for support from Fincons. And when I'm thinking about outsourcing, you always hear people are outsourcing to China, to Asia, to India. You've decided to outsource to Italy, to Bari, the town of Bari. Why have you decided to go for that way?
Well, for us, it was not an outsourcing decision, actually. Our plan was to increase the tech part of our team from basically coming from less than 20% to more than 30%. And outsourcing, of course, is a tool that we use, but we wanted to build a team somewhere in Europe, because obviously it's very hard to do that in Germany. We just realized that we couldn't do it in Germany, where we could really integrate the team later on into our teams. And I think that's something where you have to find a place that has basically the talents, and Italy with Bari definitely has the talents, but where we can integrate the people into our teams. And I think that needs a lot of cultural connection, that needs, honestly, an airport close by where you can fly to in less than 6 hours or less than 3 hours. And it needs a connection between people.
Mm-hmm. And it's a very nice location, I think. So.
And it is a very nice location, yes. If you want to send people down there to build up a connection with new team members, they have to like going down there.
Obviously, that's
and our colleagues didn't want to go to Romania or the Ukraine, so I guess Italy is a much better option.
Food is great.
And food is great,
great
that's
food,
true.
as Francesco said. Well,
that all comes into it.
That brings me to whether this is actually a general approach that you're doing with all your customers, having this as more collaboration, not so much like an outsourcing project where it's like, right, we've got this commission, let's start working on it and present the final product to the customer. It's more like, joining hands and doing this together. Is it a general approach, or is it just something we're doing with Boda? Because, I mean, we've mentioned Sky, we've mentioned Swisscom as your customers.
I think this is the main value that we can bring. No? We have the maturity now to sit with the customer together and also advise the customer how to enable and set up new digital businesses. Also maybe advising on pieces to be integrated and how to integrate it, and maybe where are vendor in the market that has software that comes as they are, we can also try to configure it and adapt it to the local customer needs. And we are always willing to do this in a sort of co-sourcing approach. So we don't really aim to have a vendor-client relationship. We really would like to be felt like an extension of the capacity of the customer, which is the way that let us come into the customer itself and go with the customer, helping them to win all the challenges and turn it into success for a long-term collaboration, which is the only way which can help us grow together with the customer and acquire the knowledge that we can spend somewhere else.
You said earlier on it's like a family-owned business, so the approach is a bit like creating a family with your team members and having this German-Italian connection in this case. Now, Riccardo, you've mentioned earlier on the metadata, the importance of metadata, and I think content is only accessible, obviously, if it can be found, if it can be traced by the user. Can you elaborate on the importance of this aspect of metadata and what role does it play in your ambitions?
Yes, as I told you before, we see the metadata as going very way back from production. So let's say that I have even a news content that is shot on a camera on site. I would like to get the metadata from that camera to flow through the delivery in order maybe to tag that content in such a way to be searchable on that video player that is presenting that news content on to the customer. So our idea is to try to collect as many metadata as possible, as more upstream as possible. And that's thing number one, across production, content preparation, and then to be used for distribution, because any search engine or any discovery software needs two things. It needs to know about the customer, so the insights that you collect through the customer usage, and it needs to know about the content, and then has to do that match. It's obvious, but so on the content part, we try to collect it as early as possible and as more automatic as possible. We have already working software that, for example, in the production area, automatically metadates all the content for the news and the sport news that we have. We are extracting metadata for content. We are doing quality control based on the metadata, and then we propagate those metadata in the final platform CMS in such a way that they can be used for the content discovery. So probably the key message I want to leave you that we try to get it as early as possible and as automatized as possible.
You said content is a gold mine when we talked about this earlier on. I think that's something I want to pass on to Peter and even change that into metadata is a gold mine. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, definitely. There is so much that you can do with metadata, which makes the experience so much nicer for the end customer. So it's definitely key to have that metadata, to have it also in a way that you don't only have metadata. Now there is news show ongoing, but we would also like to know what are the different topics being discussed in there so that you can really dive into the topic that you are interested in. And I think metadata is really getting key, and also to keep it really up to date, because customers don't accept anymore that due to some program changes, there is the wrong metadata available in the system. So we are working hard with that one and trying to secure it from all the places where we can, also for the sports content.
Now back to the advertising side of our topic. Andrea, you were mentioning targeted advertising earlier on. Obviously, you could say this is a gold mine, to put this phrase forward. What's the strategy you're following with this aspect of dynamic ad replacement? Because a lot of people are doing this in our industry. They've got different platforms, different technologies, different software of how to do it. Also, HbbTV is involved in that in some cases. Can you elaborate on your strategy in this area where some people think it's a gold mine, dynamic advertising replacement?
We of course use digital advertising systems to power digital advertising product on the OTT. But right now we see the convergence of linear and OTT, and this machine can enable serving ads, video ads on the broadcast streams as well. It's challenging because of precision, because we are swapping a broadcast stream with something digital. I know already in Germany, I think ProSieben done it. It's a great product. We are trialing ourselves since 6 months. We are in internal beta testing and soon to be launched. We hope to launch by end of this year a commercial product. So on the tech side, very challenging to have precision. On the business model side, challenging again. It's a gold mine, it's true, but we don't have to disrupt the current linear business, which is different, several order of magnitude actually different from the digital advertising piece in the sales house. So it's true that there we have big budgets, but we have big budgets on the linear side as well. So it depends how profitable we are on the digital advertising and how much yield we can do on top of what's already a big budget on linear. So we are trying different business model. Two things we are offering to our advertiser is one, to localize a version of their linear campaign it's on. So for example, Volkswagen would serve electric car variety of their TV ad on region when you have high concentration where you can plug your electric car, while on the rest of Italy you serve just the normal model. So that is something you give on top to a linear advertiser. And another model which we are trialing also, which can attract advertisers that don't have maybe a linear campaign on, is to leverage promo ads and do yield management when we have an impression that is on target and serve that swapping a promo ad. So that's the interesting part of the product, is technicalities to be addressed, but it's also business model, because it's true that on the linear TV we have big budgets, but it's not always profitable if it's interesting from the tech perspective. So we have to deal with that as well.
Right, so it's, to sum this up, the benefits of the online world in advertising now coming into the broadcast world, but not replacing it. It's like, a collaboration between both sides. Talking about collaboration, Tanya, your collaboration with Fincons, we've talked about that, but how can you really imagine, how is that really running on a day-by-day business, those teams? And you've obviously been working with Fincons for quite some time now. How are the first results? Is there something really new and innovative that you can show us?
Well, actually, the time is not that long yet, so it's a couple months. We're just building up a team. And what we did, we sent down to Italy a team of ours and basically built up an own team from our side, and then took in the Fincon colleagues to have a combination out of the German culture, our strategy, our ideas, some own Italian colleagues who will keep on the continuity of the team, and then of course bring in Fincon colleagues to support the team and to ramp it up. Until now, the team, actually also the German members of the team, are very happy with the ramp-up phase, and now we have to come into a result phase, basically. And we have first projects, complete projects that we're building in Italy. And we're right now very happy with the progress, and are really looking forward to the results.
So what are the results you're looking at? Is that a new video player or a new technology?
Actually, we're not working on video together. We're working on video in Germany, but what we're building on is a platform where we put in all the content that we have with all our publishing sites and partners, and then build on that platform with new digital products, basically. On the one side, that saves us a lot of technology costs, and on the other side, it makes us much quicker in the development of new platforms.
Now, Francesco, you have the last word as the host of the panel. And at the end, it makes sense to look into the future. I mean, we've now been looking at the track records, the history, the development, 10 years of working with Sky, and the next new thing was your opening of the German office in Munich. That's all been happening. So when you look into the future, what are the next steps, the next progress that you're looking at, and what do you want to achieve?
So our goal is always to grow, because for an IT player, the dimension is now become really a critical success factor. And the way we'd like to grow is really bring our value close to new customers that we are reaching. So establishing companies into various countries, we believe can help us even grow more. And this is in combination also with a breadth on innovation, where, of course, we do not pretend to invent anything. What we like to do is really understanding the innovations coming in the market and understanding how to propose it and to bring it to our customer to create competitive advantage. For this, we are really leveraging on a program we started up more than 6 years ago to aim to have a research and innovation department internally, also aiming to funds to invest. This is, of course, our European funds, the 2020 frameworks, or even local funds from country or from the region. So it's where Bari still is part of the game, because Regione Puglia is a very active region promoting business establishment, where is the case of Burda, also enabling innovative project. So we are a couple of interesting projects we are running now, thanks to the partial funds of Regione Puglia, who will let us implement new product for media markets, and which is also changing a bit our perspective, because we are now like a system integrator, a solution provider, and from these products we will also benefit from a different angle, so bringing also real solution and actual solution to the market.
I think we've had a very good look at now the state of this industry, where it came from and where it is going. We still have a minute left, so if there are any questions from the audience, this would be the time to post them. Okay, all questions resolved. Thank you very much for joining us today, despite this late hour. Thank you very much to the panelists, especially to Peter, who managed to come here and join us despite his time constraints. And I hope you'll have a great evening or a safe trip back home, and see you next time. Thank you very much.